What is happiness? It's certainly a word we can all agree on, and its synonyms like content, cheerful, carefree, and joyful allow a bit of a deeper understanding as well. But what makes it become something consistently attainable? And why does it feel like everyone else has so much more of it? Let me give you a little recap of the human species, so far as we know. A few 100,000 years ago were the first Homo sapiens. That's us, running around in dirt and eating bugs and whatever edible things we could get our hands on. Also, little side note, it would have sucked to be one of the first humans to test out a berry on a bush, only to find out it was poisonous and die. I'm really glad we don't have to do that anymore. In this era of our humanity, the main concerns we had were, how am I gonna find my next thing to eat? Where am I sleeping tonight? And where can I find water? I'm sure connecting with others mattered, but we probably put our survival in rank 1 of importance over wondering if Neanderthal Fred was judging the scar we got on our face from trying to catch a fish with our mouth. Then, as we figured out new and improved ways to hunt, gather, and keep ourselves alive, our problems started to evolve. We created civilizations for large groups of people to live in harmony, work together, and exchange ideas. This brought about questions such as, how do we continue advancing as a species? Not just for our survival, but in the pursuit of pleasure, cooperation, and purpose. And this is when institutions dedicated to teaching others about a certain set of beliefs, rules, and morals to follow, both religious and non-religious, started to form. Each society was built upon its own set of beliefs, and each person, no matter if they were working an important job or not, had their role and place within their society. Although we have very little accounts as to how people spent their time in contemplation and solitude, I can only imagine that this is when people started to feel like they weren't living the life that they thought they should in order to become the most happy and fulfilled. However, there was a massive problem. A problem that's only amplified in seriousness today. The formation of our current brain, with its lower and higher level parts, hasn't really changed at all within the past 35,000 to 200,000 years, long before civilizations started advancing in the ways that I've described here. Which means that our brain, the most complex supercomputer ever naturally created, is not designed to solve problems related to happiness and living the most fulfilling life we can. Our brain, as astounding as it might be, still thinks it's stuck in that era of humanity where we were testing out poisonous berries and using leaves to wipe our ass. And the entire concept of feeling like you're missing out on life probably wasn't even a thing for the first few 100,000 years of our species. So then that begs the question, if our brain wasn't designed to have an answer to the question, why do I feel like I'm missing out on life? How did we even get to the point where so many people feel like there's something they're missing out on? Well, I guess we would have to start where I first assumed people were beginning to pose this question, our earliest civilizations. Let's use the Roman Empire as an example because according to TikTok, men are thinking about it all the time.
Honestly, at least 3 or 4 times a week.
There were many different occupations one could decide to get involved in, but it generally boiled down to these 6 categories. You could be a merchant, craftsman, farmer, soldier, entertainer, or work in the government. Now, I could be wrong about this, but I feel as though whatever role you ended up finding yourself in, even if it wasn't truly what you wanted to do, rarely had you wanting to question the authority of those higher up, or even God, due to the beliefs created by the Roman society. Just about everyone surrounding you firmly agreed that there were gods each of us were serving, and that those gods are what created everything in ancient Rome to be in its natural place. As Marcus Aurelius put it, whenever you have trouble getting up in the morning, remind yourself that you've been made by nature for the purpose of working with others, whereas even unthinking animals share sleeping. And it's our own natural purpose that is more fitting and more satisfying. This is why I can't see feeling like you're missing out on life being as big of a problem back then as it is now, because it's hard to imagine even questioning what you naturally found yourself doing. And if that's the case, I'd have to assume that most people saw what they did as their right duty. So our lines of thinking have essentially evolved from we need to survive to I'll do my duty and roll to survive and not put much questioning into it to I need to survive, but I feel like I'm barely surviving due to how complicated life is, and my duty feels like it's serving no higher purpose since the world's going to shit anyways. And now we've reached modern day, where our roles in society are not clearly defined, we have access to all the world's information at any time at our fingertips, and our lifestyles are becoming unrecognizable compared to what we did for our first few hundred 100,000 years on Earth. That greater ability to fall back on other people during times of struggle and connect with other people certainly was a positive for Roman society, but something that's a positive about modern society that was not readily accessible back then is having access to professional therapists. And that is why I want to talk about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. For those who haven't heard me talk about BetterHelp, it is an online platform that will match you with a licensed professional therapist who is trained to give you unbiased, helpful advice. Let's be honest, the hardest part about starting therapy is probably just starting. It's pretty difficult to want to go into that face-to-face interaction with someone in real life, but BetterHelp's network of licensed therapists is massive at this point. They have over 30,000 therapists, and it is free to change your therapist at any time if you feel like you're not vibing with them. And you can schedule phone calls, video calls, you can send them messages at any point. It's a very easily accessible way to go to therapy. I've been to therapy several times in the past, both when I was a kid and just a couple years ago, and let me tell you, having that person to talk to who's just going to give you advice and listen to you without judgment, it's very hard to find, especially as a guy. Having that type of person is really invaluable, and I'm always learning something new about myself when I go to therapy. So again, really easy to get started on their platform. You just fill out a short questionnaire and they will match you with the therapist that they think would work best for you. So if you think you might benefit from therapy, definitely consider BetterHelp. I highly recommend it to anybody who watches my channel and struggles with the things that I talk about frequently. If you want to check it out, you can go to betterhelp.com/Cole. That is betterhelp.com/Cole, and you're going to get 10% off your first month when you use my special link. Now back to the video. So if modern day is so detached from how we spent our first few 100,000 years on this earth, what's the answer then? Since our brains, which were designed solely to help us survive and not to make us happy and fulfilled, aren't catching up with the current rate at which civilization is advancing, how do we shake off this unnatural feeling that we're somehow missing out on life? Well, some people would tell you that we simply just need to get closer to what our brain was naturally designed to do, like moving our body more, eating healthier foods, and being around other humans. And those are all very valid solutions. But those are so heavily overstated within the self-help space, and they don't fully deal with the fact that the world itself is going to continue to move forward, not backward. As much as we try to live as closely to what is natural, there are still modern activities that are inescapable from our everyday lives that we have to adapt to, or we will get left behind. Although we might not be able to change the physical structure of our brains too much, what we can do is change the neural connections that have formed due to the way we've lived our lives up until this point. And that starts with a shift in your perspective. How many people's lives do you now have access to every single day? If you were to count every single person's life you've seen in the past 24 hours, whether it was a story, TikTok, or video, how many would that accumulate to? Never have we had such an abundance of access to the routines, habits, and successes of others as we do today. And as a result, our brain interprets this as a sign that we must be doing something wrong. Remember how I said survival is the number one priority of our brain and body, not happiness? Well, when we view all the lives of others who seem to have more friends, more structure, more success, and more wealth, that tells the brain, compared to these people, you are a standout. You are not fitting in, and that is going to get you killed. And I'm sure this was a small concern in ancient Rome, like we talked about, but it was likely you were either assigned a certain useful role within society or took on the same work as your lineage, which made you fit in almost effortlessly. Now, are you actually going to die if you don't reach these people's level? Almost definitely not, unless you were driven to the point of complete poverty. But conforming to the crowd signals to the brain that you will have a better chance of seeing another day, because if you conform and fit in, you will have a tribe that you can rely on to keep you safe and build connections with. So when a fabricated modern version of that is created through people's unrealistic lives on social media, or societal expectations of when you should have completed college or have a car or have a job, and your life does not currently meet those fabricated expectations, the brain says to you, your lack of current status or belonging will make you be pushed into isolation, and isolation will lead to your demise. And when you fully understand that from this perspective, it becomes so much easier to handle. If you're able to build more awareness around when your brain is habitually looking for ways to compare yourself to other people as a means to make sure you're gonna survive, you can then start to say, now I understand why this is happening to me, And yeah, I might not be doing exactly what this group of people are doing, or have reached the same sort of status and success as these guys, but my path no longer needs to be on the same road as theirs in order to be living a rich and fruitful life. And when you realize that in order to feel like you are missing out on life in the first place, you must be operating under the assumption that there's a set way to do life that you can miss out on, and that set life doesn't actually exist, you can feel more of a sense of ease over where your life goes. However, I am not here to tell you that you should stop comparing yourself forever. Comparing yourself to others and having some sort of connection with other human beings is incredibly important, and your brain is never gonna stop doing it completely. What you need to do if you want to stop feeling like you're missing out on life is to establish your core values, remove the fabricated expectations, and become so hyper-focused on your daily duties that you barely even have time to compare your life to anyone else's. Right now, I want you to write down the 5 core values that you aspire to live by the most. These core values are your personal ethics, morals, and ideals that you strive to live by. Since you probably don't believe in a God by virtue of clicking on this video feeling like you're missing out on life, you must be the one to create your own values, almost like your own God or higher self that's going to guide your decisions. If you're having trouble thinking of these core values, ask yourself this question. If I was not forced to do anything and no expectations from an external society were placed on me, what would be the things I would want to feel and do the most? I've left a list of some common core values for you to pick for yourself on screen as well for further guidance. Then, after you've found your 5 main core values, you must ask yourself, what is the life that is most aligned with these core values? Describe in detail what daily duties you would focus on, what your days would consist of, how much you would work versus relax versus spend time with others, and make this as clear as possible. And when you've established your own ideals and your own sense of agency over your life, it's simply just a matter of asking yourself in every moment, is what I'm doing right now in alignment with my core values? If the answer is no, then you start the process of removing those things from your life. But if the answer is yes, then you are fully aligned with your purpose. And when you are so laser focused on the duties you set out for yourself, you stop blaming others for how far or not far you are in life, and every day is filled with some sort of challenge that pushes those values to their highest actualization. The natural outcome of that sort of life is a person who rarely, if ever, even conceives the thought of, I feel like I'm missing out on life. No longer is life something simply revolving around survival, or a life role that was assigned to you by another person's expectations. All those other distractions that you've had start to fade away, and each day that you're aligning yourself to those core values as much as you possibly can feels as meaningful as the last. Then, when it comes to other people's opinions and comparisons, which will still be there, the only thing you need to concern yourself with is the opinions of the people who most clearly exemplify the core values that you are striving towards. This is the true way of using our innate desire to compare to feel like you are connected with other humans, by only weighing the opinions of those whose passions and values align with yours. Now, this doesn't mean that other people's opinions whose values aren't aligned to yours are always wrong and that you should treat them poorly or hurt them, but plenty of those people are going to try to convince you that this new path you set out on is flat out wrong. And the reason they're going to do that is because they're insecure about their path not being as aligned as yours. It might feel damn near impossible at the start, but I promise you, whether that's online or in real life, these people that share your values do exist out there. The modern world has such vast complexities of meaning and purpose that our brain is not biologically wired for, and that abundance of options and potential paths is leaving you not only dizzy, but also anxious as well. Because the fear of using your agency to decide what values you're gonna live by and stick to them means that whatever outcome your life ends in is entirely by your own doing. But if you know you can't conform, if you know that much of society's current expectations are nonsense, and you know you can't keep believing in someone else or some higher power to come and make your life feel more meaningful, then it's the only option you have left. You just have to have the courage to make that first change. Thank you very much to all my patrons on Patreon. This is a platform where I put out exclusive content and you can talk to me one-on-one over the phone on there. Link in the description to that. And in a lot of my videos like this one, I try to change your perspective on something you're struggling with to see it better and in a more positive light. And that's what I did in this video. If you want to go check that out right now, love you guys. Peace.